Sometimes I get this feeling like some friends, even if they mean well,
Mm-hmm.
they aren't really pushing you to be your best self. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like they're holding you back in a way.
Right.
And that's what today's deep dive is all about.
Interesting.
We're looking at a chapter from Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life.
Okay.
And it really got me thinking about like the people we hang out with
Yeah.
and how they influence who we become.
It's a powerful concept.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's interesting how Peterson uses his own early friendships
Right.
as a sort of starting point for this whole exploration.
Mm.
So he grew up in this town called Fairview, Alberta.
Fairview.
Yeah.
Okay, I've heard of that.
It's like, picture this like bone-chilling, cold, vast prairie.
Oh, wow.
Like just surviving the elements was a challenge there.
Wow. And so he's like comparing that
Yeah.
to the challenges of like
Right.
choosing the right people to be around.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not frostbite or anything.
No, but
hanging out with the wrong crowd,
it can definitely.
it can leave its mark, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like it shapes you.
He even tells the story about Fairview cats losing their ear and tail tips to frostbite.
Oh, wow.
It's a pretty stark image
Yeah.
of how choosing the wrong environment can have serious consequences.
So it's not just like a theoretical thing. This is like real life stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then he introduces us to these two friends of his, right?
Yeah.
Chris and Ed.
Right, Chris and Ed.
And they basically spent their teenage years just driving around this endless prairie grid in his town,
Just driving.
going to parties that he describes as dismal.
Dismal.
Yeah,
He doesn't sugarcoat it.
not at all.
He's very honest about it.
And it all just sounds kind of bleak, doesn't it?
It does. There's this definite sense of aimlessness.
Like waiting for Godot or something.
Yeah, you get that feeling.
Yeah.
And he doesn't shy away from the details.
Oh, no.
Like, remember Chris's truck?
Oh, yeah, that thing.
That beat-up truck with the bumper sticker?
Oh, yeah.
Be alert.
Be alert.
The world needs more alerts. Classic.
Oh, it's so funny. But you also get this sense that
Yeah.
these guys were kind of stuck.
Like in a rut.
Yeah, maybe even like unconsciously repeating patterns that weren't doing them any favors.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point.
Like, when Chris keeps crashing that truck?
Right.
It's like,
He's not learning from his mistakes.
right, or like he's drawn to that kind of chaos.
You're touching on something that psychologists call repetition compulsion.
Repetition compulsion.
Yeah, it's this idea that we sometimes find ourselves reenacting the same scenarios,
Oh, wow.
even if they're not healthy for us. Like, think about relationships you've had,
Right.
where you just keep bumping up against the same issues over and over.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely had those.
That's repetition compulsion at play.
So are you saying like Peterson's early friendships were an example of that?
Well, he doesn't explicitly say that.
Mm,
But looking back, it's clear those friends weren't exactly
right.
pushing him towards his ambitions.
Like they weren't on the same trajectory.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, he was clearly driven even back then.
Oh, absolutely.
And then to really show that contrast, he tells the story about Ed.
Right. Moving to Edmonton.
Oh, yeah.
And ending up rooming with this guy
Oh, no.
who, let's just say, had a less than ideal end.
Oh, God.
Ed's quote about this guy is priceless.
What did he say?
He said, "My particles are scattered all over the ceiling."
Oh, my gosh.
It's dark.
That's both hilarious and disturbing.
It is.
But I see what you mean about the contrast. It's
Right.
like Peterson saying, look, your environment,
Yeah.
the people you choose to be around.
The people you choose to be around.
It can literally impact the trajectory of your life.
Precisely.
Like, it's not just some abstract concept.
Yeah.
It has real-world consequences.
Absolutely.
Okay. So then he shifts gears and talks about his college years.
Right.
And he finds this whole new group of friends. People who are ambitious, driven, just like him.
Much more aligned with his goals.
Totally. And he even describes himself as a happy clam
A happy clam.
in this new environment, which is quite a change from
a totally different vibe.
the waiting for Godot vibe of his earlier friendships.
Night and day.
It's like changing your social environment can be like hitting the reset button
Almost like a rebirth.
on your whole outlook.
Absolutely.
But then he dives into this deeper question.
Right.
Why do people choose friends who aren't good for them in the first place?
It's a great question.
And that's where he introduces this idea of the rescue fantasy.
The rescue fantasy.
Yeah, have you heard of that?
Oh, yeah. This is where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Because it's not always about consciously choosing bad influences.
Right.
Sometimes it's about trying to save someone,
Save someone.
but not out of genuine altruism,
Okay.
but for more selfish reasons.
Oh, so it's not even that we're drawn to negativity.
Right.
It's that we're drawn to playing the hero.
You got it.
That's fascinating, but also kind of unsettling.
It is a subtle form of self-deception,
Yeah.
for sure.
Wow, okay.
So, and Peterson argues that it's not just about individual relationships.
Mm.
This dynamic can play out on a larger scale, too.
Oh, interesting.
Like, he uses this analogy of a high-performing team,
Okay.
like a group of surgeons
Okay.
or a top-notch software development crew.
Right.
And then someone decides to bring in this new person who isn't quite up to par with the idea that the team's excellence will rub off on them.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that happen.
Yeah. It's
Like, let's just drop this person into the mix.
right.
And they'll magically absorb all the skills and work ethic.
Yeah, exactly.
Spoiler alert, it doesn't usually work that way.
It rarely does.
No.
And often what happens is that instead of the newcomer rising to the occasion,
Right.
the whole team's performance suffers.
It's like that saying, one bad apple spoils the bunch.
Exactly.
Okay, I see the analogy.
Right.
But how does that relate back to friendships?
Well, just like that team can be dragged down
Yeah.
by one person who isn't pulling their weight,
Mm.
a friendship can suffer
Right.
if one person is constantly making bad choices
Okay.
and the other is always bailing them out.
It's like enabling bad behavior
Yeah,
under the guise of being a good friend.
precisely. And Peterson is pretty blunt about this.
Oh, is he?
He challenges this feel-good notion
Right.
of always seeing the best in everyone.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He argues that sometimes true compassion
Hmm.
means being honest about a person's flaws
Okay.
and allowing them to experience the consequences of their actions.
So tough love, but for your friends.
It's a good way to put it.
It sounds harsh,
It does.
but I can see the logic.
Yeah.
Like if we're constantly rescuing someone,
Mm-hmm.
aren't we kind of preventing them
Right?
from learning and growing?
That's a key point. It's about
Yeah.
empowering people
Right.
to take responsibility for their own lives,
Yeah.
even if it means letting them fall down sometimes. Now, that's not to say we shouldn't offer support
Right.
or a listening ear,
Of course.
but there's a difference between helping someone through a tough time
Yeah.
and enabling a pattern of self-destructive behavior.
Totally. I get that.
It's a subtle but important distinction.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah,
But it sounds like a really tricky line to walk.
it is.
Like, how do we know if we're actually helping versus enabling?
Right.
I mean, sometimes it's hard to tell.
It is tough.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of us get stuck.
Yeah, for sure.
Peterson offers this thought-provoking question.
What's that?
If you wouldn't recommend this friend to your sister,
Okay.
your father, or your son, why would you have them as a friend yourself?
Whoa.
It's a tough one.
That's a gut punch,
It is.
but also incredibly insightful.
It makes you think.
It forces you to, like, step outside the immediate dynamics of the friendship
Yes.
and look at it from a more objective perspective.
Exactly. It's like shining a light
Right.
on those blind spots we can have in our relationships.
For sure.
And this brings us back
Yeah.
to the importance of surrounding ourselves with people
Right.
who genuinely want the best for us.
Yeah. People who are good for us.
Peterson argues that true friends should challenge us,
Mhm.
encourage us to grow,
Right.
celebrate our successes.
And also be willing to call us out when we're messing up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's that honesty, that willingness to speak the truth, even when it's difficult.
It's hard sometimes.
It can be, but it's so valuable.
Right.
It's like having a mirror held up to us, reflecting back not just our strengths,
Yeah.
but also those areas where we need to improve.
Okay, so then how do we find these friends
Right.
who can be both supportive and challenging?
It's the million-dollar question.
It's not like they're just handing out applications for awesome friend positions.
If only it were that easy.
Right.
Well, that's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay, tell me.
And where Peterson offers some surprisingly practical advice.
Okay, I'm listening.
He talks about this idea of aiming upwards,
Aiming upwards.
surrounding ourselves with people
Yeah.
who are also striving to be better,
Okay.
to grow,
Yeah.
to achieve their goals.
So it's not just about finding people who are already perfect.
No, not at all.
It's about being around people who are on that same journey,
Exactly.
of growth and self-improvement.
It's about the trajectory,
Yeah.
the direction they're headed.
Exactly.
And when we're in that kind of environment,
Yeah.
when we're surrounded by people
Yeah.
who are actively trying to level up their lives,
It's inspiring.
it is incredibly inspiring and motivating.
Yeah.
It's like we all rise together.
That sounds pretty idyllic.
It does.
But let's be real.
Right.
Not everyone's going to be thrilled
No.
when we start making positive changes.
You're hitting on something.
I mean, I've had experiences
Yeah.
where my attempts to improve myself
Right.
were met with some serious side-eye from certain friends.
Peterson talks about this, quite frankly.
Does he?
He warns us that as we start setting boundaries,
Okay.
making better choices,
Right.
and generally aiming upwards,
Yeah.
we might encounter resistance
Resistance.
from those who haven't chosen that same path.
Mm.
He even uses this evocative biblical analogy,
Oh.
calling them Abel to their Cain.
Now, I'm not a biblical scholar.
Right.
But isn't that the story
It is.
where one brother gets jealous
Yeah.
and, well, things don't end well?
Not well at all.
Okay.
The point Peterson's making is that our attempts to improve,
Yeah.
to become better versions of ourselves,
Right.
can sometimes trigger envy or resentment in others.
Especially those who feel stuck
Exactly.
or insecure.
Especially those who feel stuck or insecure in their own lives.
Yeah, it's like our progress becomes a mirror,
Mm.
reflecting back to them their own lack of progress.
It can be a painful reflection.
And that can be a tough pill to swallow.
It can.
Yeah.
And so Peterson prepares us for the possibility that some people in our lives
Mm.
might not be happy to see us succeed.
Oh, wow.
They might try to undermine our efforts,
Oh, no.
pull us back down to their level,
Wow.
or even sabotage our progress.
That's a tough reality.
It is.
But I think it's something a lot of people can relate to.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But Peterson also offers a message of hope.
Oh, that's good.
He reminds us that we have the power to choose
Choose.
the people we allow into our lives,
Right.
and to create a social environment that supports our growth.
So it's about being deliberate
Yeah,
about the company we keep,
absolutely.
not just passively accepting
Right.
whatever relationships happen to come our way.
Exactly. We have agency.
But that brings up another question.
Okay.
What about those people who are genuinely struggling?
Mm,
Are we supposed to just abandon them
right.
if they're not on the same path of self-improvement?
That's an important question,
Yeah.
and one that we'll dive into
Okay.
in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, so stay tuned
Stay tuned.
as we explore how to balance compassion
Yes.
with healthy boundaries
It's a delicate balance.
and how to navigate those tricky situations where our desire to help might actually be doing more harm than good.
It's a real dilemma.
Okay, so we'll be back.
We'll be back.
All right, so we're back, and I'm still thinking about that rescue fantasy concept.
Yeah, it's a powerful idea, isn't it?
It's like this hidden trap in our relationships.
Hmm.
We think we're being helpful,
Right.
maybe even selfless,
Yeah.
but there's this whole other layer of motivation going on underneath.
It's a tricky thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And Peterson argues it's not just about individual relationships.
Really?
This dynamic can play out on a larger scale, too.
Oh, interesting.
Like, he uses this analogy of a high-performing team.
Okay.
Think like a group of surgeons
Okay.
or a top-notch software development crew.
Right.
And then someone decides to bring in this new person
Mm-hmm.
who isn't quite up to par, with the idea that the team's excellence will just rub off on them.
Oh, yeah, I've totally seen that happen.
It's like, hey,
Right.
let's just drop this person into the mix.
Yeah.
And they'll magically absorb all the skills and work ethic.
Right.
Spoiler alert, it doesn't usually work that way.
It really does.
And often what happens is instead of the newcomer rising to the occasion,
Right.
the whole team's performance suffers.
It's like that old saying, one bad apple spoils the bunch.
Exactly.
Okay, so I get the analogy,
Yeah.
but how does that relate back to friendships?
Well, just like that team can be dragged down by one person
Right.
who isn't pulling their weight,
Yeah.
a friendship can suffer if one person's constantly making bad choices and the other's always bailing them out.
It's like enabling bad behavior, but under the guise of being a good friend.
Exactly. And Peterson's pretty blunt about this.
Oh, is it?
He challenges this whole feel-good notion of always seeing the best in everyone.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He argues that sometimes true compassion means being honest about a person's flaws and allowing them to experience the consequences.
So it's like tough love.
In a way,
Yeah.
but for your friends.
Yeah. Tough love for your friends.
It sounds kind of harsh.
I know it can sound that way.
but I can see the logic.
Yeah, for sure.
Peterson offers this thought-provoking question.
Okay, what is it?
If you wouldn't recommend this friend to your sister, your father, or your son,
Okay.
why would you have them as a friend yourself?
Whoa,
Right.
that's a heavy one.
It is?
But it's also incredibly insightful.
It makes you think.
It makes you step outside of the situation
Right.
and look at it from a more objective perspective.
It's like shining a light on those blind spots
Right.
we can have in our relationships.
For sure.
And this brings us back to the importance of surrounding ourselves with people
Yeah.
who genuinely want the best for us.
People who are good for us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Peterson argues that true friends should challenge us, encourage us to grow, celebrate our successes,
Yeah.
and also be willing to call us out when we're messing up.
Yeah, to be honest with us, even when it's hard.
That's right. It's that honesty, that
Yeah.
willingness to speak the truth, even when it's difficult,
Right.
that can be so valuable.
It's like having that mirror held up to us.
Yeah, a mirror that reflects back not just our strengths,
Right.
but also those areas where we need to improve.
So how do we find these friends? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
It's not like there are applications for the awesome friend position.
I know, right?
Well, that's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
And where Peterson offers some surprisingly practical advice.
Okay, I like practical advice.
He talks about this idea of aiming upwards.
Aiming upwards, what does that mean?
It's about surrounding ourselves with people who are also striving to be better,
Okay.
to grow, to achieve their goals.
So it's not about finding people who are already perfect.
No, not at all.
It's about being around people who are on that same journey of growth
Exactly.
and self-improvement.
It's about the trajectory, the direction they're headed.
So we all rise together.
Exactly. When we're in that kind of environment, surrounded by people who are actively trying to level up their lives,
Right.
it's incredibly inspiring and motivating.
That sounds great in theory.
But in real life, not everyone is thrilled when we start making positive changes.
Right.
I've had experiences where my attempts to improve were met with some serious side-eye.
You're not alone. Peterson talks about this very frankly.
Does he?
He warns us that as we start setting boundaries, making better choices, and generally aiming upwards, we might encounter resistance from people who haven't chosen that same path.
Resistance.
Yeah, he even uses this evocative biblical analogy, calling them Abel to their Cain.
Now, I'm not a biblical scholar,
Yeah.
but isn't that the story where one brother gets jealous and, well, things don't end well?
That's the one, and that's exactly the point Peterson is making.
Okay.
Our attempts to improve, to become better versions of ourselves, can sometimes trigger envy or resentment in others,
Especially people who are feeling stuck or insecure.
especially those who feel stuck or insecure in their own lives. Yeah,
So it's like our progress is a mirror reflecting back their own lack of progress.
it can be a painful reflection.
And that's a tough pill to swallow. So Peterson is preparing us for the possibility that some people in our lives
Right.
might not be happy to see us succeed.
Sadly, that can be the case.
They might try to undermine our efforts, pull us back down to their level, or even sabotage our progress.
It's a tough reality.
It is, but I think it's something a lot of people can relate to.
I think so, too. It's more common than we'd like to admit.
Yeah.
But Peterson also offers a message of hope.
Okay, that's good.
He reminds us that we have the power to choose the people we allow into our lives
We have a choice.
and to create a social environment that supports our growth.
It's about being deliberate about the company we keep.
Exactly, not just passively accepting whatever relationships come our way.
So we're not stuck.
No, we have agency.
But that brings up another question.
Okay,
What about those people who are genuinely struggling?
right.
Are we supposed to just abandon them if they're not on this path of self-improvement?
That's an important question, a really important question.
Yeah.
And it's one that we're going to dive into in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned as we explore how to balance compassion with healthy boundaries
Okay.
and how to navigate these tricky situations where our desire to help might actually be doing more harm than good.
So we've talked about that rescue fantasy thing
Mm-hmm.
and how sometimes when we're growing,
Yeah.
it can trigger envy or resentment in other people.
It's true.
But I'm still kind of wrestling with this question.
Okay.
Like, how do we balance our own need for positive, supportive friendships
Yeah.
with the fact that some people in our lives might be struggling? They might need our help. They might not be
Right.
on that same upward trajectory.
It's a tough one.
Are we supposed to just, like, cut them loose?
That's a question that I think gets to the heart of what it means to be a good friend.
Yeah.
And it's something that Peterson really grapples with, too.
Okay.
He's not saying we should be callous
Right.
or abandon people who are going through tough times.
Of course not.
But he is urging us to be discerning
Discerning. Okay.
and recognize that we can't force anyone to change.
Mm.
And sometimes our attempts to fix someone
Right.
can actually do more harm than good.
It's like you can lead a horse to water,
Exactly.
but you can't make it drink.
You can't make it drink.
Right.
And I think this is where the idea of boundaries comes in.
Boundaries. Okay.
Peterson talks about the importance of setting clear boundaries in our relationships,
Yeah.
not as a way to punish people,
Right.
but as a way to protect ourselves
Protect ourselves. Okay.
and to create a space
Yeah.
where healthy growth can occur.
So it's not about being a doormat,
No,
but it's also not about being like an authoritarian dictator
right.
laying down the law.
It's about finding that middle ground
that balance.
where we're both supportive
Yeah.
and firm in our own needs and limits.
Okay, so recognizing that we're each responsible
Yeah.
for our own choices and our own well-being.
We can offer support. We can offer encouragement,
Of course.
but we can't live someone else's life for them.
We can't live their life for them.
We can't.
Okay, that makes sense.
Good.
But how do we know
Right.
when we're crossing that line
Yeah, where's the line?
from being helpful to being enabling?
I don't think there's a simple answer to that.
Right.
And it probably looks different in every relationship.
Yeah, that's true.
But Peterson offers a few questions we can ask ourselves.
Okay. What are they?
Are we constantly bailing this person out
Okay.
of situations they created themselves?
Mm.
Are we sacrificing our own needs and well-being to accommodate their bad choices?
Okay.
Are we more invested in fixing them
Right.
than they are in fixing themselves?
Those are tough questions,
They are tough questions,
but important ones.
but important ones.
And if the answer to any of those is yes,
Yeah.
then it might be time to step back
Take a step back.
and reassess.
Reassess this situation.
And that reassessment might involve having some difficult conversations,
It might.
setting some firmer boundaries,
Maybe.
or even in some cases, making the difficult decision to distance ourselves
It's not easy.
from that relationship.
No, it's not.
That sounds really hard,
It is hard,
especially if it's someone we care about.
especially if it's someone we care about.
But Peterson's saying choosing people who are good for us,
Yes.
who support our growth,
Yeah.
who challenge us to be our best selves.
That's right.
That's not selfish.
It's not selfish.
It's an act of self-respect.
It's an act of self-respect.
And it can be a powerful form of self-care.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about the don'ts.
Right. The don'ts.
Don't fall into the rescue fantasy.
Yeah.
Don't enable bad behavior.
Uh-huh.
Don't let others drag you down.
Don't let them drag you down.
What about the do's?
The do's, okay.
What are some practical things
Right.
we can do to actually build
Yeah. How do we build those relationships?
those positive, supportive friendships that Peterson talks about?
That's where this chapter gets really exciting.
Okay, tell me.
Because Peterson doesn't just leave us with a bunch of warnings.
Right.
He also offers some concrete advice.
Okay, good.
He talks about this idea of aiming upwards.
Aiming upwards again.
Yeah, surrounding ourselves with people
Okay.
who are also striving for growth,
Okay.
working towards their goals,
Mm.
committed to becoming better versions of themselves.
So finding those people who are on a similar path,
Exactly.
who get it,
Who get it.
who are also putting in the effort to level up their lives.
They might not be perfect,
Right. None of us are.
but they're at least pointed in the right direction.
Okay.
They're committed to growth, to learning, to becoming the best versions of themselves.
Right.
And when we're surrounded by that kind of energy,
Yeah.
it can be incredibly contagious.
It lifts you up.
It does.
So we all rise together.
We all rise together.
I like that.
And Peterson talks about how those kinds of friendships can be built
Yeah.
around shared activities, shared values, shared goals.
Okay, so like joining a book club.
Yeah, joining a book club,
Volunteering for a cause.
volunteering for a cause you believe in,
Taking a class together.
taking a class together.
Or even just having regular conversation
Exactly.
where you talk about your aspirations.
Your aspirations, your challenges.
So it's about being intentional,
Be intentional.
about building those connections,
Yeah.
not just waiting for them to magically appear,
Right. We have to put in the effort.
and be that kind of friend in return.
Yes.
And
Be supportive.
be supportive,
By encouraging.
encouraging,
Honest.
challenge them to grow,
Challenge them to grow.
but also celebrate their successes.
Celebrate those successes.
So it's a two-way street.
It is a two-way street.
We get what we give,
You get what you give.
And as we start cultivating
Yeah.
these positive, supportive relationships,
Right.
Peterson reminds us that they require effort
They do.
and nurturing,
They require nurturing.
just like any other worthwhile endeavor.
Like anything worth having.
We have to be present.
Be present.
We have to be communicative.
Communicate.
And we have to be willing to put in the work
Put in the work.
to make those connections thrive.
It's like tending a garden.
Oh, I like that.
You have to water it, weed it,
Give it plenty of sunshine.
give it plenty of sunshine if you want it to flourish.
And just like a garden,
Yes.
these relationships can bring us so much joy,
Joy
nourishment,
and beauty.
beauty.
They can enrich our lives
They really can.
in countless ways.
Countless ways.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's the one key takeaway
The key takeaway.
you hope our listener is walking away with today?
I think it's the realization that we have more power than we realize
Okay.
to shape our social environment, to choose the people we surround ourselves with,
Yeah,
and to cultivate relationships that support our growth and well-being.
that's powerful.
It's not always easy,
Right.
and it might require some tough choices.
And difficult conversations along the way.
But ultimately,
Right.
investing in those positive, supportive connections
Yeah.
is one of the most rewarding things we can do
It is.
for ourselves and for the world around us.
It makes the world a better place.
That's a beautiful thought.
It is.
And I think it's a perfect place to leave our listener
Okay.
with a final thought-provoking question.
All right. What's the question?
Thinking back on your own friendships, are there any relationships
Yeah.
that have held you back or pushed you forward?
Held you back or pushed you forward?
What steps can you take today
What steps can you take?
to cultivate more supportive and enriching friendships
Those are great questions for all of us to ponder
as we navigate
this
this complex
and beautiful
journey
of human
and
connection.
journey of human connection?
Well, folks, that concludes our deep dive
Yeah.
into Dr. Jordan Peterson's insights
His insights
on friendship and personal growth.
friendship and personal growth. We hope you found this exploration as thought-provoking and insightful.
As thought-provoking and insightful.
As we have.
We've enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for being here.
And until next time, keep diving deep.
Keep diving deep.